Shalom, all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahweh, Ba'asham, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of the great millstone, and salutations to all you sincere Akian. And this is your brother Abawan back again with another video through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahweh, Ba'asham, Rakah, Kodash. And one of the things that I really, the most surprising thing, that I learned coming into this truth aside from all the parts of the scriptures, because that's more or less understandable if you really go into the scriptures, brother, is this right here, being that our people, the so-called Negroes, were ruling in Europe during the Dark Ages. A lot of the noble houses, a lot of the kingdoms that you hear of during the Dark Ages, and the kings that you hear of as well during the Dark Ages were actually Jig, that's the so-called Negroes of the Southern Kingdom. And this is history that isn't really taught in schools, history that has been buried to the extent where you have to really, really, really dig deep just to get it. This isn't information that is allowed to be disclosed. This isn't information that is disclosed to the public or even allowed to be taught or talked about. But as things are changing, the truth has been so long without fruit. Everything is coming out right now. Wisdom and knowledge is being increased on the earth. All that. All these prophecies are coming to pass. All this information is not coming out. Now you're hearing more and more people talk about this. And this is one of the videos going into exactly that. Evidence of Black European heritage, and not just Black European heritage, because even when Esau Edom admits that during the Middle Ages, right, the Dark Ages, that Jacob was there, they will say that, oh, well, they were just slaves, right, or something like that. But it's not just about, Black European, but nobility, all right, Black nobility. I even have books going into this, like the coat of arms for the Black nobility, and nature has no color line, right? Because it wasn't just the Moors that were ruling in Europe during the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages. Because you already know that whenever you talk about Jakes, Jakes, so-called Israelites ruling in the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, everybody thinks about the Moors, and because they conquered so much of Europe. And really, if you really want to go into it, the reason why you have Islam, right, that is the Muslim religion, so popular, so popular on the earth, is because of Jake. All the Islamic and the Muslim scholars that pushed Islam throughout Africa and Europe and Asia, right? All the Islamic and Muslim scholars that built all these schools throughout history, all these universities that invented the Arabic numeral, the numeric system that we're using right now on the earth, that everybody is using. That was all Jake, and it was all Jake that was into Islam. Even the Moors, which is still Jake, that were into Islam, that conquered Europe, that was still Jake. And even the kings of Europe during that time, the kings of the Brits, the kings of the French, the kings of the Wales, the first kings, right, the original kings of Europe, all the original European tribes. So that was the Anglo-Saxons, the Celtics, right? Gaelic and Celtic is the same. The original Germans, the first Germanic tribes, even the Vikings, they were all Jake. Because if you go into the history, you go into different names that are used, like for example, Scots and the Scottish, right? And even he goes into this video, and he goes into it in this video as well, where he mentions different names of different European names, and majority of those names are referring to the descriptions that fit Jake, whether it's your dark skin, whether it's your nappy hair, whether it's your flat and flat nose, thick lips, that all these descriptions that fit Jake, and that's how they named their children, right? Majority of these European names that you see people having, these popular European names that almost every white person has now, is actually, if you go into the root meaning of the name, the etymology of the name, you find out that a lot of those names just refer to so-called dark skin or dark fleshed people, right? It's a description of them. And this really is going into, or rather just evidence to show that even to show that during the Dark Ages it was Jake that was in power, not Esau. Right after the fall of the Roman Empire, it was Jake that came into power, which is consistent with prophecy, because even the scriptures tell you that. Okay, and let's go into this. So the next precept, so the next thing I'm going to do is go into some precepts, right? Let's get that in the blue letter, of course. So this is the blue letter. I will go to first and foremost Job 9 verse 24, because there is a reason why this history is unknown. And then you go to the average person and tell them that Jake was in rulership, they start giving you that meme, right? It was cans and shit. They start trying to shame and mock you for your beliefs. Even when we go into how we are the true Israelites according to the scriptures, right? They do the same thing. Even when we're even talking about the heathen, not even ourselves. We tell people that, right, the Egyptians were Hamites, they were a dark skinned people. It's still the same shaming language. Oh, it was kings and shit, it was kings and shit. All these Edomites, man. But the truth of the matter is that this is real history, okay? And if we go into the real history, if we go into the descriptions and the relics and the documents of the past, it tells you that these people, right? The Anglo-Saxons, the Brits in the Middle Ages, the Germanic tribes in the Middle Ages, the Celtics in the Middle Ages, the Irish, they were all Jake, they were all dark-skinned people, right? They were the Southern Kingdom. So this is the book of Job 9, verse 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. As I was saying in Job 9, verse 24, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? And I just read that whole precept without even looking at it. That's just how much you have brought it out. It's already ingrained into your mind. And the reason for that is because Esau Edom through his craft, through his craft and through his deceit, which leads me to the next precept. And it's the book of Revelation 21. Okay, so like Revelation 20. So this is the book of Revelation 20, verse 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. And this is, of course, talking about the rulership of Esau Edom, or rather the kingdom of Esau Edom, the red dragon, okay, that is ruled during the Esau Edom ruled during the Roman Empire, and eventually was cast down into the bottomless pit, which of course that bottomless pit is Europe, where they served as slaves under Jake, okay, under our people when we came into power during the time of the Middle Ages, and eventually, that's during the Renaissance. Because if you go into the history of the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages, which is the time period when Jake was in power. Hold on. Let me look for that. Hold on. Like I was saying, the Middle Age, the Dark Ages, which was the time period when Jake was in power. You go hours from the fall of the Roman Empire, which was 300 AD, to the Dark Ages, which started in the 15th or 14th, the 14th century. Okay, that's 1,000 years. But the main point being this, let's get that. Analyzing the Encyclopedia Britannica, and I've brought this out before. So I'll get it in the Encyclopedia Britannica, and here it is. This is migration period. That's what I'm looking for. Let's just click on it anyway. But this is the migration. Let's just click on it anyway. Migration period, also called Dark Ages or Early Middle Ages, the early medieval period of Western European history, specifically the time 476 to 800 CE, when there was no Roman or Holy Roman Empire in the West, or more generally, the period between 500 and 1000, which was marked by frequent warfare and a virtual disappearance of urban life. The name of the period refers to the movement of so-called barbarian people, including the Huns, the Goths, the Vandals, the Bulgars, the Alani, the Swabian, and the Franks, into which had been the Western Roman Empire. The term Dark Ages is now rarely used by historians because of the value judgment it implies. So, and this is the Britannica going into that period, which is the Dark Ages, which is after the fall of the Roman Empire up until the rise of the Renaissance period, okay? We continue on. Though sometimes taken to derive its meaning from the dearth of information about the period, the term's more usual and pejorative sense is a period of intellectual darkness and barbarity. And that was the point that we're trying to get. So Esau Edom will refer to the Dark Ages as a time of intellectual darkness, that nothing was being done after the fall of the Roman Empire, that basically the whole of humanity stopped progressing. There wasn't any new advancement in technology or culture or anything like that up until the Renaissance. And the reason why they say that is because really have to understand in this truth that whenever Esau Edom talks about humanity, right, he's actually talking about himself because, and it's just like the elder Malcolm says, Esau Edom does not recognize anybody else's human rights except his own. So when he says humanity, he's speaking about himself, okay? So basically, it was a time when Esau Edom fell into complete darkness because they were cast into the bottomless pit, which is, of course, Europe. And that was the time when these devils fell out of power and Jake came into power and put Esau Edom in slavery, right, for a period of 1,000 years during the Dark Ages, during the Middle Ages. This was when Jake was in power over all of Europe. And eventually Esau Edom came back into power during the Renaissance, right? But during this period, okay, just to make it clear, the kings of Europe and the people living in Europe during that time were Jake, okay? The kings of England, Wales, Scotland, France, all these Western European, like they said, nations, even in Germanic nations as well, even Russia as well, before it became Russia, but really even Russia as well, it was all controlled by Jake because if you go into the history, it was Jake that actually founded Russia and even the Russian language, which I believe is based off the Hebrew, okay? Blake, that was some of the names I was thinking about concerning, some of the names that I was thinking about going back to these European names that actually refer to descriptions of Jake. One of them is Blake, which of course means black, and a lot of other names that have the same meaning because this is how our people, you know, all these European names and all these European kingdoms during the Dark Ages, they were all controlled by Jake until Esau Edom came into power. And just like the scripture says, he came into power and deceived the earth. And he came into power to be ruled, to be loosed a little season. But his real power is deceit. And he deceived the earth by making the people believe a lie. And the lie, of course, being that it was Esau Edom that was in rulership during the Dark Ages, which is exactly how Esau Edom operates because every kingdom, every nation, right? He has changed the images of those nations and those people to images like unto him. All the ancient kingdoms, all the ancient civilizations are so-called, looks like so-called Edomites, right? Whether it's the Egyptians, whether it's all the Middle Eastern nations, the Semitic tribes, even the Arabs, Ishmael, made them to look like himself. That's why whenever you see any of the depictions of the men of the Lord, the prophets, and the men of the scriptures, right, even the Moses and his son, in this modern day, they all look like Edomites. So you have that blonde hair, blue-eyed Cesare Borgia, because this is how Esau Edom operates. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked, and he covered the faces of the judges thereof, because he has made all the images of the ancient civilizations and the greatest civilizations to look like unto himself. He has painted his likeness on all these images. That's where your iconoclasm comes in. That's where the defacing of the relics come in, lightening up the images. That's where it comes in. That's where your pseudoscientific branches of things like archaeology and I want to see a paleontology as well, and also you know art as well. That's where all these things come in because you have to remember majority of the Renaissance artists were set up in order to deface the images of Jake that was ruling, the Jake nobility that was ruling during that time, and to make it seem as though it was Esau Edom that was in power. Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, they were all set up to create these false images of Esau Edom to make themselves look like They are the ones in power because this is how Esau Edom operates. When they come into power, they change the images of the people that they are ruling over into themselves. The same thing that the Ptolemies and Alexander the Greek did with the Egyptians. The same thing that the Herodian dynasty tried to do with our people during the time of our Lord Yahushua when Herod was ruling in Judea. And this is how Esau Edom has flipped the script basically, and he has changed the images of our people that were in power during these periods of time, whether it was when we were still in the Holy Land or whether it was during the Dark Ages as well. He has flipped the script and changed who was in power to make it look like it was himself, right? But at the end of the day, now the truth is coming to light. Now the relics are being brought forth, the evidences are coming out to show that it was really Jake that was ruling during the Dark Ages, and after the fall of the Roman Empire, you had Jake ruling even during the latter part of the Roman Empire as well, with the five good kings and the Holy Roman Empire and the like, right? So with that, individual right here once again, all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahwashai, Ba'asham Rakah Kodash, Wa Abad Baba, and to the spirits of you are and you are quite edified. Shalom.